you've made your submissions to the Minister of Finance. That's what informed the budget that was presented yesterday. So even before we get the forum report, we know that you have a plan for the general education sector. Can you take us through from the basic level to junior high school to senior high school level? What are the top 5 things you are doing in the sector, and how you are going to fund them?
For preschool, kindergarten to primary school, and even to JSS, we have to review their curricula this year, get a number of textbooks. There are problems even with language, especially local language. I mean, if you have a child go to school for the first time, you cannot necessarily insist that the child English. The child has to start from the native language and then gradually get warmed up into English and know that English is the language to learn to guide the future of the child. So the teaching of local native language is compulsory, but we do not have writers for many of the languages, and you don't even have material for purpose of guiding the teaching of some of those local languages, whether it's Ga, it's Twi, it's Ewe, it's Hausa, it's Dagwani. We have to encourage people to write so that we have some text at the local level. Now, there is some initiative as introducing children to digital skills at very early age. That is how it should be, so that throughout the child's training, they get used to what we call 21st century competences, knowledge, skills, values that are relevant for the 21st century. Ghana necessarily must adapt to all our educational training and needs, seeking to produce the requirement of the 21st century. Now, if you come to junior high school...
Honorable, before we go to junior high school, please, let's stay with preschool.
Yes.
Because it's important for me, foundational. I have 2 boys.
Yes.
And I'm struggling to teach them 3. One of them was born around the COVID era. And as parents, we were busy.
Clearly.
So they will watch Peppa Pig. They will watch all these things.
Thought you were busy creating him during COVID.
So the content on which they were socialized is not curated locally. YouTube, all these platforms. So as we are talking about preschool and the early stages, you just mentioned language. What investment are we making into those? There are companies like Animas FYB in Ghana that can create all the cartoons that our children watch online, which are struggling for recognition and funding to do these. You're talking about writers.
I'll be happy to engage Ali Max if he's listening to you. We should have a conversation. Yesterday, my attention was drawn to one of the publishers in the country that even the current atlas that we use only recognizes 10 regions in Ghana and not 16 regions in Ghana.
Oh, goodness.
How are you going to so we need to get that produced quickly and rectified quickly.
Yeah.
So I'll be happy to engage Ali Max to see what they are doing. But as you said, some of it, if it's innovative enough, you may be lucky enough to get donor support and donor funding to deploy it. Government itself must be interested in investing in it.
Well, it just drew me into where I was driving to the donor support. Because you remember 2 weeks ago the conversation we had?
Yeah.
We reviewed the University of Ghana annual research reports of all the colleges and institutions at the University of Ghana, and realized that all the funding was coming from external sources. So for all the research we have to do to position Ghana and to drive growth,
largely funded by
they are being funded by other people. It was only one project which had a KGL foundation in Ghana funding that. So what kind of funding arrangement are we putting in place to invest in that fundamental activity of raising the children at that level?
I can assure the 2 Kojos that the president has just appointed Paula J, administrator of the GET Fund. I've engaged him, and this year we've publicly announced it when we listened to Professor Nana Banfom of the University of Ghana at the National Education Forum. I have requested that this year GET Fund will finance 5 local scholarships, PhD, in all public tertiary institutions. We should be able to do that. You don't need to go abroad, so that we can train our own faculty here. So this year, in the GET Fund formula, expect to hear that there will be some allocation which will support PhD and research of young Ghanaian in a new initiative of local PhD for Ghanaian students, in order that we begin to train people even for the colleges of education, which has now become universities are now degree awarding. I should be seeking amendment immediately even to the colleges of education bill. It gave them mandate to issue diplomas. They are now doing degrees. We have to get the law revised, but I have to consult with the Attorney General to be able to do that. Now, when you come to junior high school, there are still infrastructure gaps. And even the digital gaps. What kind of blackboard do they use? What kind of teaching goes on in there? There are 759 schools that requires urgent infrastructure intervention. In terms of schools under trades, and it's a shame for me, 30 years after the promulgation of the 1992 Constitution, it's unacceptable that Ghana has not attained free compulsory universal basic education. What the public has not interrogated well, I just contested the statistics of the New Patriotic Party government. When Nanado used to come to Parliament State of the Nation address, say that 5.1 Ghanaians have benefited from free senior high school. Inaccurate statistics. The statistics I have examined and evaluated, you don't have more than 3.7 million benefit. Where you buying textbooks based on 5.1 or based on 3.7? Where you supplying food based on 5.1 or 3.7? We need to look at all this. But ultimately, the free senior high school, yes, to quote one of the best artists I've read about it, the most significant revolutionary approach to increasing access. But what Nanado sought to do, which even the academics in Ghana have not interrogated well, was to redefine universal basic education to include secondary education. I'm surprised that academics in Ghana are silent about it. What is basic education? It should have been what, Kojo, you started with. Preschool, kindergarten, up to JSS is basic. Now, Nanado added secondary education as part of his wider definition of free compulsory universal basic education.
Because there are some people who argue that now secondary and TVET could be deemed basic, because in the world we are in, from junior high school, you are practically not useful in any industry or in most places. So if we see senior high school as a basic and worked on the curricular, TVET and everything, then people from that space can effectively contribute to building Ghana.
Why one will not fault and forgive him, even though it's churning out more quantity than quality, the free senior high school, is that it is producing a literate population, basic. So to that extent, let it be. So the country may be investing in producing a literate population. That may not necessarily mean a skilled, competent human capital. A literate population is not the same thing as quality human capital. And that is what we should be mindful of as a country, because we are producing for purpose of competitiveness. A graduate from University of Ghana should be able to stand any day with any graduate from Princeton or from Yale or from Oxford. That is what it should be. So when you come to secondary education, infrastructure is still a problem. We have 5,000 schools which are still under trace. There is a worrying dichotomy of north-south.
Is that at the secondary level or a general?
General, basic level. You still have the quality problem between the north and the south, and between rural and urban. More quality in urban areas, less quality in rural areas, more quality in southern Ghana, less quality in northern Ghana, including western, north, and Oti region. You have to work to correct that in order that the competencies are, as I said, are 21st century. Now, when you come to the public tertiary education, infrastructure is a problem. I was in Ho for the education forum. During lunch break, I drove to UHAS, one of the universities Professor Mills established. Now, there's a Get Fund project which started far back 2014 and completed as of yesterday. How can this happen? And Kojo, read the directive principles of state policy.
It's Kojo and Kojo.
Kojo Square.
We both read it.
Yes, so read the directive principles of state policy requires that a succeeding government at least work to complete projects inherited from the previous government. But this political punishment, because this contract was awarded by the previous government, abandon it. The school has no administration block. They are still struggling with some infrastructure, including even roads. I've had, and even now, you Kojo spoke about TVET, technical and vocational education. Now, many of them are at different levels in terms of infrastructure. Some poor, some arguably okay or better, and some just not acceptable. I think government borrowed some 158 million euro to do them because of that exchange. It has stalled. Those projects are at various levels, 32%, 40%, uncompleted. Now, when you come to higher education,
if you don't mind, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to focus